everybody, and welcome to another episode of Sport Federation TV, the show that brings you all the news about all the sports in all of the Western Cape. I'm Ch263, and once again, I'll be your host. We've got four completely different sports joining us this week. We'll be talking climbing, tennis, cue sports, and even darts. In studio with me first, we have Western Cape Climbing. Chris and David Naude is joining us. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks so much for having us.
Well, yes, Chris, you're probably my most frequent guest, and always amazing things happening in the world of climbing. For the viewers at home that are not familiar with the sport, run us through how climbing operates.
So climbing has three different disciplines. We have bouldering, lead, and speed. And I put them in that order because of David, because he really likes bouldering. He tolerates lead and he doesn't like the speed. Today we're going to find out a bit how that doesn't really help him very much. That theory doesn't really help him very much in the upcoming.
He's a real dad. Hey, David.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
a real
for sure.
So we're gonna be heading into the Youth Olympic Games in the next 2 weeks, which is really exciting times for climbing, because we've got now, for the first time, climbing is going to be included in this, and we can see the difference in the number of inquiries we get, people who want to try climbing and things like that. It's suddenly becoming much more visible, and people are realizing that it's actually a pretty mainstream sport, and it's not just for crazies who go out in the mountains and do dangerous stuff. Hippies, yeah. So it's a very natural thing. People climb from the first thing babies want to do is climb something, and usually they get that knocked out of them by the time they're teenagers, because mom says don't go up so high. So this is a way that they can get up high safely and do what is a very natural thing to do. So within that we have, it's very much a lifestyle sport as well. So many people take part in climbing and never compete. Our side of it, the Western Cape Climbing, is specifically the competition climbing, where we have regular competitions between clubs and within the province. We have provincial competitions, national competitions. We've just our youngsters have just come back from the Youth Worlds. And now David's off to the Youth Olympic Games.
Now there's three different types of disciplines, if I can call it that, in the climbing world. You said bouldering, speed climbing, and
lead climbing.
Lead climbing.
So bouldering.
Briefly, those three. Can you describe those three for us quickly?
Yes, certainly. So maybe David should do that actually, because he's better at it than I am. He's
cool. Yeah.
He
so
gets passionate about it.
So yeah, as Dad said, bouldering is my passion and sort of my favorite discipline. And bouldering is climbing low, either actual boulders or just low 4.5 meter boards in the gym. And the moves are incredibly difficult. So although you're not climbing very high and you don't get very tired, every move is incredibly taxing on your body, and this kind of brings it all together into making it a very difficult, probably the most difficult, the most difficult discipline of climbing. And then you've got lead climbing and speed climbing. Lead climbing is climbing 20-25 meter routes with the aid of harnesses and ropes. And although the moves aren't as difficult, you're climbing so many sort of moderate moves in a row, and that sort of adds up into getting you really tired until eventually you just get too tired and fall off.
Just to cut in there a little bit, you said with the aid of ropes. That might be a little misleading. It's not with the aid of ropes, but you take a rope up with you to keep you safe. So you can't use the rope to pull yourself up on. Many people think that the rope that you're climbing with is somehow you're pulling
helping
yourself
you
up on a rope or whatever.
Right.
You're still climbing on the holds.
And using your own muscles
at some point,
to do it.
Should you fall off, the rope is there to catch you, and that's your climb is done. You come down, and certainly as far as competition climbing is concerned, that's it for you, and you go home. So the idea is on that form of climbing is to see who gets the highest.
Right.
And the walls are specifically designed to make you fall off. It's more of a competition between the climber and the route setter. So a route setter's main objective is to try and spit the climbers off the wall and make them fall. And the climber says, I don't want to fall off. I'm going to see if I can do better than...
I hate that guy.
Yeah.
That's the worst guy to choose, of course.
Yeah, sure.
And then you were going to go into speed climbing.
And then the speed climbing. And the speed climbing is a set route that's the same certified pattern of holds all across the world. So you're going to climb the same route here in China, in Austria, wherever you go. And it's just climbing that set route as fast as you possibly can. And you practice and dial in those moves to the millimeter. And I think the record for a 15-meter wall is 5.6 seconds.
Wow, I don't think I can even run that fast.
It is. It's mental, yeah. And yeah, so that's the speed climbing.
Now, David, you're still in school, grade 11, right?
Yeah.
So many sports out there, and I'm sure you've got the conventional sports being offered at your school.
Sure.
What drew you to climbing?
It was just the freedom of it, I think. My sister used to climb, and she kind of sort of introduced me to it at a pretty young age. And I kind of never really fell out of love with it. I thought it was just the most incredible sport that was so free. You could do what you wanted. There were no set rules. You know, you could just go out and have fun, as well as making it so it's your hobby and it's your sport. You know.
Yeah,
so,
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, David, I was saying to your dad before we started, you were born at the right time in the climbing world, because now you get to go to the Youth Olympics, and this is a very first for the sport. Hey.
That's correct.
Tell us about the road to this point.
So the whole idea with the Youth Olympic Games sort of started last year, and there was a competition that I had to win. You had to come first, because there's only one male and one female going to the Youth Olympic Games
From Africa.
From Africa. And 5 weeks before the competition, I had an accident and I broke both my heels.
Oof.
Yeah. So that kind of brought everything into perspective, and I was really wondering, how am I gonna get to this point to be able to compete in this competition. And I ended up just training super hard and managed to win the competition. And it's kind of just been an uphill battle of training. And
so you're like the Karate Kid of the climbing world.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just been crazy training for the last couple of months, and hopefully we'll be able to pull it off at the competition.
Wow, Chris, I mean, as a dad and of this amazing young athlete, but also an administrator of the sport, watching him overcome that hurdle would must have been...
that was traumatic. It was, you know, we'd put so much into it already, and when he fell on the mountain and broke his heels, we just thought, okay, well, we've just got to do what we can to heal this. And I used Dr. Google, and we found anything to do with bone growth or any nutritional help, any exercises. We had ultrasonic machine at home, and 3 times a day we were applying that, and just taking him to the gym. And we had a rope set up where there shouldn't have been ropes, but we had ropes up so that he could train on pull-ups and not have to go onto the floor again afterwards, because he couldn't stand. We wheeled him in with a wheelchair and sit and do pull-ups from the wheelchair.
And I can
Things
imagine,
like that.
I can imagine with climbing, you'd feel every part of your anatomy involved, from your neck muscles to your fingertips.
For sure.
The heels, though, how involved are they in this?
Surprisingly so. In bouldering especially, there's a specific move called a heel hook, where you physically put your heel on a hold when your body's in that position. But it wasn't actually so much that issue for the competition, but it was more that I couldn't put my climbing shoes on because they're so small. You know, you're sizing down 3 sizes from your normal shoe into a climbing shoe, and I couldn't get my climbing shoes on. So it was definitely stressful. There was a moment where you're like, I don't know how am I going to do this.
It's mind over matter.
Yeah,
I think it boils down to that after a while. Hey, and tell me about the other peers. Are you the only junior going to the Olympics?
Yeah, so it's me and a girl from Joburg, and it's for the Youth Olympic Games. In Africa, only 1 male and 1 female can go.
Wow,
Yeah.
so that must have been quite a tough competition, the national championship.
It was, yeah. I was definitely a bit worried, especially after my injury. You know, if something had to go wrong, I could get seriously hurt. But it all ended up panning out, and it was all right.
Sure, you must have cried.
I actually didn't. I don't think you did either. Actually, I think it was just my mom on the phone. But
Yeah, no, I mean, especially because your journey to that point and how much
Yeah.
you had to overcome to be ready for that, and then to actually qualify as the only young male that's going to the Olympic Games for climbing for the first time ever.
yeah.
So you're going down in history already at your young age.
Yeah.
Where do you see the sport going now, Chris?
Well, I can see that it's going to grow hugely now. I mean, we can see the inquiries coming in already. Not specifically because of that, but generally the visibility becomes a little higher. People take a little bit more interest in it, and when it's an Olympic sport, then people think it's actually a serious sport. You know, it's not
Yes,
not just
absolutely.
people
It's a status.
fiddling around
Yeah.
anymore and what have you. The Olympic format itself is not a very popular one with climbers, but it does kind of cement it in the public's mind.
Yes, and
So
you can always cross, the world body can
in the-
always cross that hurdle later.
There we go, yeah.
Yeah.
So in the Olympic format, you have to do all three of those disciplines together. Now, in most of the climbing, people specialize in bouldering, or they specialize in lead, and most specifically in the speed is a very specialist sport. It's incredibly technique intensive, and a minute difference in angle of the heel, and that takes another hundredth of a second off, and so it goes. But those guys are not particularly necessarily good at lead climbing or bouldering, even more so. So in the Olympic format, you have to be good at all three. They take the combined result of all three of those disciplines, and there's one medal for all three disciplines.
Sure.
Which
That's hectic, eh?
Yeah, it's incredibly different training technique that you got to
Yes.
adopt for training for the Olympic format, because as Dad said, it's like you're trying to get a marathon runner to also run the 100 meters in the Olympics. It kind of doesn't really make sense.
and
but
the hurdles.
and the
just
hurdles,
to-
yeah,
Yes.
just and so having to train all three and having to juggle all different types of training and different muscles you need to exercise in the week it's surprisingly difficult. Yeah.
So it must be
Yeah.
that guy who's choosing the courses for the
Yeah,
lead.
yeah.
He must have been behind that. Let's see how we can make this as difficult as possible.
Yeah.
David, how has being involved in climbing changed your life?
Sure. I often wonder to myself where I'd be if I didn't climb.
Probably playing rugby or something
Yeah,
silly
something
like
dangerous
that.
out of it. Yeah, it's an incredible sport, and I think the community around it. I've met so many amazing people around the world. I've got, the people you meet in some of these competitions are friends for life all around the world, and it's a really incredible community.
Which other countries do you think you'll need to watch out for over there?
All of them, but Japan in recent years has just ramped it up substantially, and they've got some incredibly strong climbers who are winning all the World Cups and all the World Championships. And in the States, Austria is also incredibly, the whole climbing community in Austria is massive, and the government puts huge amounts of money into it, and it's really a very intense community.
And I'm sure
out
their
there.
mountain
Yeah,
climbing
exactly.
abilities are amazing in Austria because of what their
Well,
economy is centered around as well.
The recent World Championship, we've just had it now, and there were just short of 10,000 people crammed into the stadium to watch climbing, which is
And that was in Austria. Yeah.
Wow!
that wasn't even the final.
Yeah. Wow.
So there really is. It's a different thing. Everybody there knows about climbing. They don't all climb necessarily, but they will certainly recognize another climber in the
So
street.
climbing is the national sport in Austria.
Yeah.
Well, there's a goal
Absolutely.
for you to set. Well, David, what would be your going away message for all the juniors out there that may be thinking of a new sport to try out?
I think, climbing's such an incredible sport from every aspect of it, from the people you meet to the fun you have when you're climbing. And I think if you're trying to find a new sport, climbing's totally the one you should do.
Okay.
It's really easy to do it as well. You just head down to your local climbing gym, which they will know from having had parties there, and just take it up a level, because from the party vibe, which is very much one of just playing games. It's not a difficult step up to just say, look, I want to actually learn how to do this, and in the space of one morning you can learn to climb, and from then on you just get better and better and better, and it generally, it's a bug that bites.
Okay, wonderful. Very nice to meet you, David. I wish you all the best as you prepare for the Youth Olympics. Chris, I'm sure I'll see you again back here next week or something.
When I come back from the Youth Olympics, we'll tell you how it went.
Your medal.
Sure.
Yeah?
That'd be nice.
Yeah. Okay, well, all the best.
Thank you very much.
Till next time.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lynn.
All right. After the break, we'll be back and we'll be talking tennis, so please stay tuned for that.